Okay, so let's get started. What I'm going to be showing you tonight is 2 different ways to decoupage. We are going to be doing the wet version of decoupage, and I'm also going to be showing you the iron method of decoupage, which is what I like to do on larger flat surfaces. So I'm going to be showing you both of them, and especially with the iron method, some people will take tidbits of the information and they'll miss a step. And then I'll get message as to why did this happen or that happen. We're going to walk through all the steps, and I'm going to tell you everything you need to do the iron method. I'm going to turn you down. We're going to start off with the, I'm going to start the step of the iron method, but then we have to let it dry. So I'm going to set it to the side, and then we're going to start doing the wet version. Okay, so first of all, these boards are raw wood. I get them at Home Depot. They're good quality. Look at how thick those are. These are like 18-inch rounds, and they're like under $9 at Home Depot. So I use these for my Lazy Susans. And so I recommend doing a clear, if you're doing it on raw wood, I'm doing it on painted, the other side's painted. If you're doing it on raw wood, put a coat of clear coat down first and then let that dry. That seals off that porous wood, and then we can start doing our decoupaging, okay? So that's what I recommend if you're decoupaging on raw wood. It just helps keep enough of the product for your paper to stick to instead of the wood soaking it in. So put a coat of clear coat on it first. But I'm painting mine. You can see I have a big circle in there because I have a plan. I have cut out, I'm going to be doing the iron method. And the reason I'm doing the iron method for this one is I want to be able to place this right where I need to. I don't want some wet clear coat, you know, getting it all wet and I have to move it around. I'm going to use the dry method. I'm going to be using the iron for this. So we're going to be doing the iron for this. Okay, so what I want to do is the only place I need to put my clear coat on is right here in the center. That's where my paper is going. Again, this is the one tip that people always miss me saying. We are going to put the satin clear coat on here, and we're going to let it dry. Now, when you do this on your own, now letting it dry doesn't mean letting it sit overnight. You want to be able to do this whole process in one setting. You put your clear coat on here, you're going to let it dry. And soon after it is dry is when we move on to the next step. The longer you leave your clear coat to dry, you know, if you wait 4 hours, 5 hours, however long you let it dry, the harder it's going to be for the heat to reactivate it. That's the whole purpose of the iron. The iron is reheating the clear coat and making it into a glue. It's reheating it. So if you let it set and dry overnight, it is going to have a harder time to reactivate with the iron because it's starting to cure. So make sure, like, when I'm going to be putting my clear coat on here, even if I was doing this off video, I would let my clear coat dry. Sometimes I'll take a heat gun to it, just air dry it, and then I'm going to do this next step. So let's start off. I'm going to put my clear coat on here, and then we're going to let it dry, and we're going to set it to the side, and we're going to come back as soon as it's dry to the touch, and we're going to start doing the next step. Okay. Oh, and I'll show you the hardware on how to make a Lazy Susan too, in case you're wanting to make one for gifts. You can make these into charcuterie trays too by just putting handles on them. This is a great holiday gift idea. Okay, so I'm gonna take my satin clear coat. Okay, so this is my preferred brush for decoupage. This is the Scarlet, and the reason being, look at how firm that is. This is really good for pushing out bubbles. This is my preferred way. And so I'm gonna go ahead and use that. See, and I'm running really low on clear coat. I gotta order me some. Okay, so I'm gonna put just where in my circle where I'm gonna be doing the decoupage. I am going to be, normally I don't use a pencil. I use chalk, but you guys would not have been able to see the chalk if I did it that way. So I normally don't use pencil, but I did pencil just so that you guys could see it. Okay, you're putting a generous coat of satin on here. You wanna make sure you have this everywhere, and don't apply it like super, super thick, but also don't make it so thin that it's not going to reactivate much. So see, I'm just painting it on there. See how you can see it's nice and white? You're getting enough on there. I just don't want any pooled up because then it'll just take longer for it to dry for us to be able to do the next step. Okay, so I look at an angle. I can see I missed a whole section right there. Even you can see it right there. I missed that whole section. You got to look in the light and get it everywhere you need it, because if you don't have clear coat underneath an area, the heat is not going to do anything, and your paper's not going to stick. Making sure I got all the way up to my line. If I go over my line, it's okay, because I'm going to be painting my stripes anyway. Okay, so I got it. Nice, you don't have to worry about brush strokes because, I mean, this is all going to be hidden. Okay, I'm gonna set my little brush to the side. Put my lid back on my clear coat. Now we're going to set this to the side and we're gonna let it dry and we're gonna come right back to it, okay? And if it doesn't dry quick enough, I'll take a heat gun to it, but I don't like using a heat gun if I don't have to. So let's set this to the side real quick. And we're gonna move on to the other method and we'll come back to that. Okay, so let's do the wet method real quick because this is a fast method. And then we'll go back to the iron method, okay? So this also prepped with paint, raw board. It's prepped with paint, and this is how I did the sign that I have on the wall. I put paint on it because of the fact that whatever color you have underneath your paper, this paper is somewhat translucent. I mean, when it gets wet, it becomes a little bit translucent wherever you see white. See, you can see my hand underneath there. See my fingers? So if I have black paint underneath here, if I had black paint under here, that black paint is gonna darken the white of her dress. Let me take the picture off the wall because that one I did not paint and I'm gonna show you the difference. This is the one that I did for my wall just so I could stage that piece of furniture. And I did it right on the raw wood. I sealed my raw wood with satin, I let it dry, and then I started my wet decoupage. And you can kind of see I did not paint underneath and the boards are not the same color. Okay, see that? So you will see this flower is a little dark, light. See each flower, you can see especially here, see how this is darker and this is lighter? The color of the wood is going to show through. So that is why you want to pay attention to what color you put underneath your decoupage. I personally always use a white or a cream or drop cloth, French linen, any of those, sawmill gravy, a light color underneath. Okay, so this is an easy form of decoupage. I have little lines. I'm not worried about it. Not worried about it at all. Gonna use the same satin clear coat. And being generous. Okay, let me put this aside so I can reach it. And I'm gonna start at one end. Okay, I'm gonna get this on. You wanna make sure you get everywhere. If you miss a spot, your paper is not gonna stick. This is like the wet version. Okay, I'm only gonna go so far. I'm not gonna put paper, I'm not gonna put it all the way down the board. I'm gonna do it in steps, just so I have more control over it. Keep dipping back into my satin. I really need to order some more. Okay, so I'm doing about 2 boards. Getting it nice and coated, making sure I got everything. Okay, now, what I'm gonna do, see, this is why I don't do the wet version as much, because once I lay it down, I can pick it back up, the paper won't tear, but if I pick it back up, I'm also picking up my clear coat, and I'll have to go and put more clear coat down if I move it too much. So I am going to make sure that I want her dress on there, I want her ballerina slipper on there. I don't have any clear coat over here, so I'm able to move it around. I wanna make sure her head's not cut off. I just wanna make sure she's not cut off. This is where you can take your hand inside of a sock. I'm just gonna take a wrapper, a bag. There's no friction with this. And I'm gonna hold my paper up and I'm just gonna wipe out those wrinkles. And if I need to pull it up a little bit to get a wrinkle out, I can, because I don't have clear coat all the way down. See, this isn't attached. So I only do part of it. And I'm taking my bag, I don't know if you can see, I'm able to, with this bag, there's no friction. That bag, if I was using my bare fingers, you know, you do take a chance, you're rubbing the paper on a spot that has too much clear coat underneath it. You know, you don't wanna happen to damage your image at all. These are pretty tough papers, but I prefer to be on the safe side. So you can use saran wrap, you can use any type of plastic, but I'm not creating any friction by having my bare fingers or a squeegee or something like that on it. Put it in a bag if you have to. So now I got no wrinkles. There we go. Now I'm gonna continue on. Fold it up. It's just I find it easier to do it this way because when you have the whole board covered with your decoupage medium, this will start drying quicker than you can get to it. And so I prefer to do it in sections. And then if I lay it down, it's not sticking over here while I'm trying to work over here. So I do it in sections. Get all the way to the edge. I do about 2 of these little planks at a time. wiping out those wrinkles. If you have an area that looks like it's an air bubble, more than likely what that is there's not enough clear coat underneath it. So if you look at an area and you're like, oh, there's an air bubble. Why isn't that air bubble going away? That's actually a bump in the wood. But if you had an air bubble, more than likely it's because your wood or your surface either soaked up your clear coat too much and you need to add a little more in that area, or you missed that spot, okay? So I'm going back and forth. Okay, we're almost done. And then I'm gonna heat gun it, and we can, I'll heat gun it, and then we will sand off the edges. Okay. Making sure I got a nice look in the light. I see a whole section right there I'm missing, right there, and right there on the edge. Okay, your edges are very important. Okay, so now lay it back down, and wherever my boards connect, because this is a palette, like a palette sign, I'm making sure that I get my finger along that where those boards join together, so there's no gap. Make sure I got my edges down. I got an air bubble, pull it back up, slide it back down. Okay, so we have this on. See how she's nice and smooth? She's nice and smooth. Okay, so when she's dry is when we sand it. I'm gonna take a heat gun to this just real quick. I'm doing it a little bit early, but I want to be able to talk to you, and it's still a little wet, but I'm still going to sand it anyway, just for the sake of time. Okay, so what I was saying about letting it dry. At this step, I usually will wait to put my top clear coat on top. I'll wait till tomorrow, but tonight I'm going to do it tonight, just so that you can see it. But I usually wait until the next day, and the reason being is I have that wet clear coat underneath. When you get this wet again by putting a clear coat on top, it's going to cause the paper to wrinkle. But if I let this paper dry and that clear coat underneath dry really well, then when I put the clear coat on top, I'm not going to get all those big wrinkles. It's going to reduce the amount of wrinkles you have because my clear coat underneath is fully dry. So if you don't want that wrinkled look and you want to have the least amount of bubbles or wrinkles as possible, do your clear coat, lay it on your paper like I just showed you, let it dry overnight, and then come back and put a top coat on it. You'll have less wrinkles. Okay, so now, when it comes to sanding, and it's underneath this pile of, oh, here it is. I use the Dixie Belle sanding sponge, 220 grit sandpaper. You can use a sanding block. You can use rad pads from Surf Prep. You can use whatever you want. I have a little, like a wood bump right there, but I'm gonna have to deal with that. Okay, that's what I like to use. So what you're gonna do, and most of you know this already, I'm going to sand, but I'm gonna sand down. I don't wanna sand up because I'm gonna pull the paper up and I could tear the paper. So when I sand, I am sanding in the downward position. You can already see I'm starting to tear the paper. I lift up and I sand in the down position. So this is how you get the nice smooth edge. Okay. That's how you get your nice smooth edge. Okay, I'm gonna come back to this side, but so far you can see what she's looking like. Isn't she pretty? And nice smooth edges. Okay, we'll come back and finish sanding her and put her clear coat on as soon as that's dried enough for me to finish sanding it, but I don't want to tear the paper. Let's go back to the iron-on method. Okay, so the nice thing about, see, it's dry, so I get to place this, look at, I can move it around. I don't have to worry about, I get to take my time placing it and making sure I got it right where I want without it sticking to a wet clear coat. So that was satin, I have it dried. But the key is, once it's dry, move to the next step. Don't wait a couple hours, don't wait overnight. Do this all in one step. It'll activate easier for you and you'll have less areas that didn't adhere. Okay, so see how I get to like take my time and maneuver this? And make sure I'm in that circle. I'm not in that circle. Let me scoot over just a little bit. Okay, so now I'm in the circle. I've got it exactly where I want. And that is the nice option of doing this iron method. But here's the trick. You need parchment paper. I know it's backwards for you because the camera flips it backwards, but you need parchment paper. Don't use wax paper, use parchment paper. Okay, we're doing the parchment paper because I don't want, one, when I reactivate the clear coat, I don't want it sticking to my iron. And two, I don't want to scorch my paint, and I don't want to scorch my paper. So I have my iron right now set with the steam off, and I have it at, usually I have it set at the cotton setting, so I need to push it up to the cotton setting. Okay, no steam, okay? So I'm gonna iron my paper, keeping it moving. When you get over to your paint, especially if you're using silk. If you're using silk, be very careful. You don't wanna keep your iron in one spot for too long because it will bubble. The chalk mineral paint will bubble too, but the chalk mineral paint holds up a little bit stronger to the iron, but they both work. So I'm just ironing this, and what this iron is doing is activating, it's reheating and activating that clear coat that's underneath my paper, and it's gonna turn it into a glue. And the nice thing is that with the ironing, I'm also gonna get a completely flat, smooth decoupage. Okay, so it's down. That's decoupage now. I do see a bubble. So I need to put my paper back down. That bubble just means that clear coat underneath did not reactivate. So I need to concentrate on that one area. Let's see if that area went down. Yep, that went down. If by chance, most of the time when people send me pictures of their project and they'll be like, I have a bubble. Usually I find out that they waited overnight before they did this process. You want to do it soon. And I'm going to show you. Let me move this iron off the side so I don't burn myself. Look at how smooth, look at, it's on there, but look at how smooth that is. Look at that, that is smooth. We're going to let this cool. And then you can put a clear coat on it. Don't panic when you put a clear coat on it. Whenever you get paper wet, it wants to expand, which creates the wrinkles and the bubbles. And then when it dries, it will shrink back down. You may still have some wrinkles in there. You do another ironing. After we put a clear coat on this, like usually I would wait until tomorrow. As soon as this cools down, I'm gonna put a clear coat over it just to show you. But you put another clear coat on here, I'd wait till tomorrow, once again, because it reduces the amount of bubbles you're gonna get because the paper has had time to dry and start curing with the sealer that's underneath. That's why it's better to wait. So if I waited till tomorrow, put a clear coat on top of this. If I get bubbling and wrinkling, any type of wrinkles or bubbles after it's that my coat that I put on top to protect this, after that's dried and those wrinkles don't go away, you put the parchment paper back down and you iron it again. Ironing is always your last step. And I can do that with the ballerina. Let's let that cool for a second. So I'm gonna clear coat this. And if I get wrinkles, even though I didn't do the iron method on this, if you don't want to do the iron method, it's okay. But if you get wrinkles on this, how we did the wet version of decoupage, you can still iron this. After this is dried, and if you happen to see some bubbles in there, put the paper back down, the parchment paper, iron over those bubbles. Sometimes that clear coat just needs to be reactivated, that there's an air pocket that didn't adhere. Now, let's say you didn't have enough clear coat underneath, and so you can't reactivate anything, and that little section of paper is not sticking. It's okay. Take a razor blade, make a little slit, apply some clear coat over that little slice that you made, apply some clear coat over that. It will seep down in that little slice that you made. It'll seep into it and get underneath. Let it dry, iron over it again, okay? That will take care of your bubbles. So let's put this back down. Okay, now let's clear coat the top of this, and then we'll move back to the iron method again. I know I'm going back and forth, but I want you guys to see the steps of both of them. Okay, so now, normally, if you're doing home decor, you wouldn't really need to seal this again because it's not getting used. But I like to seal everything. So I'm still gonna seal this, and you're gonna see that it will kind of bubble up again because the paper's gonna get wet, it's gonna expand, which when it expands and stretches, it creates bubbles, and then it'll shrink back down. So that's why I like this brush, because it's firm. I am going to firmly, see I'm being really firm with my clear coat. I am pressing out those bubbles before they really happen. See, I'm pushing down with that Scarlet brush, it's not bubbling. I have a couple like wrinkles right there, but that is not a bubble. Okay, but it will bubble a little bit because I did not wait 24 hours. That's okay, I'm gonna show you that little plastic bag that we've been using will come in handy. That's not too bad as far as any bubbles and wrinkles, but I'm gonna show you. Hold on, let me finish up getting this one side. Let me take my little baggie, and if I would happen to get a bubble or a wrinkle that I don't like, I'm going to show you what I do. Okay, so spread that out, make sure it's all covered, look in the light. Okay, so if I happen to have an area that bubbled that I don't like, or a wrinkle appears that I don't like, I will stick my hand in the baggie so it's nice and smooth. And I will, even with that clear coat, I will push down any wrinkles and bubbles. And then I'll smooth it out with that Scarlet one more time. I'm moving fairly quickly. See, some of that's the grain in the wood. There's one right there. There's a little bubble right there. I pushed it out. Don't worry, I'm gonna smooth out the clear coat again. Just making sure if there's any areas that didn't adhere. I'm pressing them down with my little plastic baggie. Okay, but now I kind of, I have some skip marks on my clear coat. So now I am going to just smooth it out. Just smoothing that out where I rubbed and pushed out those wrinkles. Okay, so that one is gonna be done. I'll have pictures of it. Now this one, nice and smooth, it's cooled down. I would once again go over this. Usually I wait till the next day, and I'm gonna clear coat it. Okay, so you can hear the air bubbles kind of pop up. See how it got some bubbles in there now because that paper got wet? I would let this dry, those bubbles will flatten back out, and then I would take my parchment paper, set it on top, and give it one last iron. That reactivates that clear coat, and it creates a seal and it smooths out the paper. So when this dries, like I said, I will put parchment paper over it and do one last ironing. Then you can also use wood you bend, and you can trim out your edges if you want to. There's so many options. I'm gonna be painting the stripes along here, but there you go. Always remember, do it all in one setting. So you put your clear coat down, you let it dry. Put your paper on top, get it where you want it. Put your parchment paper on top of that, iron it into place, clear coat it again. If you can wait 24 hours, it's better, but if you can't, clear coat it again, and let it dry, and do one last ironing. Ironing is always your last step. It's gonna give you that perfect finish. Okay, so that is ironing method and wet method in a nutshell. But this is gonna be so pretty hung on a shelf. This is the new papers, look at that. Well, my name is Amy with AJ's Vintage Designs, one of the brand ambassadors here at Dixie Belle. Make sure you head over to my page. I do a lot of lives over there at AJ's Vintage Designs. Follow me and turn on the notifications so you know when I'm live. I also have a YouTube channel and a TikTok channel, and you can follow me on Instagram and Pinterest. I'm pretty much on all the social media, so follow me at AJ's Vintage Designs. Love and hugs, everybody. Hopefully I'll see you on my page tonight at 10:30. If not, I'll see you next Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bye, everybody.